Hi, and welcome to our show. My name is Curtis Brooks, your host, transformational speaker, and authority in employee engagement. We have started this show at the premises or the purpose of talking about leaders and how important leaders are, but more specifically, our title of our show is Know Thyself. What is leadership, and how much do we really know? And those are some of the questions that we're going to answer during the course of our show. Again, know thyself. How much do we know ourselves? And to begin our show, I'm going to start with a question, or at least a comment, or so as a statement, is that are leaders perfect people? Think about it. Do we esteem leaders to be perfect? And it's okay for us to be imperfect. It's something to think about, because the next question is that why do we expect so much out of leaders? And when we're working with leaders, or at least, for instance, our president, we expect a lot out of leaders. We expect a lot out of public officials, police officers, and those who are in or elected officials. We expect a lot out of them. We expect them to we expect them to rise to the occasion and deal with the matter in a sense of diplomacy and ethics. And we know that's not always the case, because we know that people are imperfect, to include myself, obviously, but people as a whole, we are imperfect. And it's interesting because though we understand that, we still expect our leaders to do differently, to rise above what we know as people being imperfect, but expect them to be perfect, or at least to behave in such a degree, or to esteem a situation to um, rather than to look down on it, or to speak ill of a situation or someone. So we expect them to act or perform in such a way, again, using skill set, using diplomacy, using their own personal challenges, knowing that they've gone through certain things. So it's important that we, again, recognize, as much as we understand that people are not perfect, to include leaders, it's important that first we know thyself. And as much as we, again, can esteem leaders, it's important to know that there's a leader within each of us. We may not be leading an organization, we may not be leading a club or some kind of group or something, but we play active roles in our household. And we like to assume, or at least believe, that those are roles that we play at home. But in the same fashion, those are roles that we will also take up on the jobs, if you will, our different careers. And when we understand that you're taking these roles, at the same leadership role as at home, again, you may not be leading an infantry, or in the sense of a military situation. You may not be leading an organization, a large organization with 500 people, let alone 20 people, or 5 people, but you are playing a leadership role even at home. And if we can apply that same understanding to our career as relates to dealing with people, how even we deal with our children. It's not to say that our colleagues are children, but it's the same concept. And if we are to understand that, we can get the most out of our experience with people. And I'm going to pose another question, at least before I pose that question. I'm going to step out here and say that leadership, in a lot of ways, not always, but we lead out of fear. We lead out of a scarcity. And when we lead out of fear or that scarcity, it's hard to lead other people. It's in a sense that we're being led here It's essentially a one-man show. And the fear comes in where, or at least it's really scary when a leader is leading out of fear, because he's essentially, or she is leading us down the path that's going on in here. And what he or she may be dealing with, it's not what everyone else is dealing with. So the question is, know thyself. And when we know thyself, and part of knowing thyself is, again, being cognizant of the challenges that we face in our own personal life. It doesn't mean that others will be facing those challenges or have faced those challenges, those same exact challenges. It's practically going to be impossible for someone to be or to face the same exact challenges that you and I have faced from time to time or day to day, whatever the case might be. But there is an understanding that though we may share different stories, though we may use different words to express ourselves, that people are people, that in fact that our expressions may be different, our choice of words or vocabulary may be different, but the same expression, if you will, the same understanding is felt, or the empathy is coming across or has come across in a fashion where we understand. And it's like music, if you will. Music is something, or musical instruments or songs, music. It is something that touches the heart, or that many people can understand across all different languages. And I think it is the same with our trials and tribulations, the different challenges that we face from just life, just dealing with people, dealing with our own issues. And as leaders, when we can know thyself, again, take to heart the challenges and mark those calendars in regards to, on such and such day, I've started this happened to me, whatever the case, and learn from those things. And this is obviously not necessary information that we're going to share with everyone, but we're going to be mindful of where we have come from. We're going to be cognizant of the trials and the tribulations that we've dealt with through the course of our life, through the course of our career, and be able to adapt that understanding, those trials, to situations or new situations that will be present in front of us at that present moment. So we're going to need to learn how to be adaptive and use those situations and those challenges that we've gone through, and to recognize that, wow, I remember this. I recognize this place where I'm at right now. I recognize this place where my colleague is at. I recognize this place where my subordinate is at. And this is where the empathy comes in, where we can correct a behavior, or use our past experiences to recognize the situation that a colleague is going through, recognize a situation or a problem that even our organization is dealing with. So how well do we know ourselves? Think about it. How well do we know ourselves? And depending on how you answer that question is depending on how much time you will spend with yourself. And the time that we spend with ourselves is obviously not going to be sitting alone and doing absolutely nothing. We're going to spend time with ourselves while we're in the midst of doing work, while we're in the midst of doing our careers, while we are in the midst of doing life. We're going to set aside that time where we're going to step out of being busy for a moment, so that we can recognize our own behaviors, recognize the challenges that we all face as human beings. We face jealousy, we face self-pity at times, we face just a gamut of different feelings that are coming across the airwaves and that we tap into from time to time. And we need to be able to recognize those situations and when they come up, because when they come up for a reason. And this is why it's important to do the work. It's important to do the work on many levels, not only just for us as personally, just as for us as individuals, leaders, or employees, or your colleagues. It's important for us to do the work for others so that we may be able to lead others. You can't lead others if you haven't done the work. And again, how much do we really know about leadership? How much do we really know about ourselves? The Greek word for knowledge is, or to know, is intimacy. And intimacy, not in a sexual manner, but to some degree, or is that how much do we know ourselves? How much do we know the very road that we've taken, that we may take from work to home each day? We know where the restaurant sits. We know where the school sits. We know where the different businesses are along that path. But how well do we know ourselves, thyself? And if we can take time out of our busy schedules to spend time with thyself, we can know thyself just as well as we know the daily journey or the daily trip from work to home, or to from work back to from home back to work. And if we know thyself, we can also know another person. We can also know others as leaders. We can also know our colleagues. We can know people. We have allowed the world to come in and share with us, or at least dump their garbage in our lives. And we've accepted it to be true. The truth is that from one person to the next person, we're not that different. The biggest difference is that we may describe a scene or a situation differently, but the emotions are all the same. The emotions and the discomfort, again, we may feel different things, but overall, the emotions that we're dealing with, they're all the same. We feel despair, we feel doubt, we feel, again, a gamut of different feelings, but the feelings are all the same. We may express ourselves differently, but again, the feelings are the same. And when we understand this, when we understand ourselves, we can understand the challenges, or at least share in the empathy, empathize with another. We may not obviously have gone down the same road, the same path, but we can empathize with the situation of another. And somehow the situation can be similar. It may not be the same, but it can be similar. And I think as leaders, we need to learn how to take the high road. And the only way that we are going to learn how to take the high road in most instances is that, again, we do the work. Most people don't want to do the work. And most leaders have claimed to have done the work. But the telltale signs is when the pressure comes, he or she falls apart. He or she gets just, I guess, come to a place where there's no diplomacy in their delivery. Pressure is going to come in all different directions. It's going to connect with us. It's not going to connect with us. But we have to be careful for the pressure that does connect with us, that even when it does connect with us, that we are prepared to do the work. We're prepared to search our own hearts and come out with a different perspective, at least to say, I thought before, or I spent time to think before I responded. How well do we know ourselves? Here are a couple of things, or at least a definition of the word leadership. And I looked this up on Google here. The definition reads, the action of leading a group of people or an organization. Second, the state or position of being a leader. And the state has to do with your mind, your belief. And if you take this position as a leader, you're going to be held to a higher standard. And that's one reason why we can't be so quick to try to lead people, because your laundry will be aired, in a sense that the challenges that you will claim that you're ready to take on, they're going to be the very challenges that will assault you if you have not done the homework. The homework is more personal. Recently, I have been doing a series on Maslow's theory as it relates to employee engagement, and it is a wonderful piece. And so I invite all of you to check it out here on my YouTube channel. That's going to be Curtis Brooks Transformational Speaker. Again, on my YouTube channel, Curtis Brooks Transformational Speaker. Again, check it out. It goes into great detail in regards to what is expected of us as individuals. And again, this is before the leadership. This is before the employee. Because once we can take care of the basic needs, dealing with, as Maslow theory states, with the survival, dealing with the security piece of it, dealing with the sense of belonging, and eventually coming to a place of self-actualization. And once we can deal with those items that are taking place underground, if you will, are taking place, and those things that are not seen, once we can deal with those things, we can reach the pinnacle of self-actualization. And self-actualization is really, who am I? Self-actualization is really the knowledge, the intimacy that I spoke of, which the Greek word for knowledge is, or the meaning for the word knowledge, the Greek definition is intimacy. So self-actualization is intimacy, knowing thyself. How well do you know thyself? When the pressure comes, and here's the thing, is that we as people, we have to keep that nature that is in all of us, that nature that says, I know this, that nature that is, or believes that it knows everything, believes that it's confident about everything. We have to be prepared to keep that nature that's in all of us, that will doubt, that will be overly confident, that nature that can be just the bad part of us, the bad side of us, if you will. And it's in fact in all of us. So we have to make sure that we're keeping that nature under suppression, if you will. And what I mean by is that we have to constantly do our work. There'll be times where jealousy may not bother you. There'll be times where envy may not bother you. But there'll be another time where jealousy sticks out like a sore thumb and will respond in such a uncouth manner that it surely is not very becoming, especially in people who really know us. So those are some of the things. Again, there's a gamut of different feelings and emotions that will come up from time to time. But Those are the things that we have to be able to suppress. And when I say suppress, because it's interesting, we want to, sometimes we can think of suppressing as denying ourselves, but in fact, we have to deny ourselves certain things. We have to be able to put that nature that wants to really do ill or cause ill will towards others, that nature that wants to be overpowering sometimes, that nature that thinks that he or she is the best or better than another person, that nature that that's in all of us that will deal with jealousy from time to time. Sometimes just a lot of the ugly things in life. We need to come to a place through knowledge of knowing ourselves, knowing thyself, a place of intimacy, if you will, that we begin to have a relationship with thyself. And we can lead out of this relationship with thyself, not saying that others are going to be like us or they should be like us or we're expecting them to respond in the same fashion, but reaching a place through understanding, a place when we know thyself that in fact is prepared to empower others. Because when we have reached a place of knowing thyself, it's still constant work. It's still constant remembering that that old nature, that nature in all of us can rise at any moment. And that's the reason why we have to keep that old man, that nature, the old nature that's in all of us, keep him suppressed because he will show his ugly head from time to time and just make a mess or mockery out of just life and just different things or accomplishments of others. And even to the point where that nature in us, because we find ourselves sometimes comparing ourselves to others and not believing that we are, or at least on the same level, or at least lining up with the accomplishments of others. And that's not always going to be the case because we're all at different levels. We're all at different places in life. And that's okay. We have to come to a place to accept that. Because the challenge a lot of times is that we can step into a place prematurely, thinking that we're ready and truly not be ready for the challenges of our new position, especially if we're taking a leadership role. Do you know yourself? I'm not speaking of the sense or in the sense of what you want or even what your goals are. Do you have a relationship with yourself? Do you consider yourself your best friend? That regardless of the mistakes that you've made, do you consider yourself your best friend? Not your enemy, because there's an enemy in all of us that wants to challenge the good in all that we do. And that's the old man, that nature that's in all of us. There's an adversary that the thought alone is adversarial in the sense that it will challenge the very works that you've already done. It will make you believe at times, or at least think that it's not good enough, that you're not good enough. You could have done it a little different. It will have you doubting, have all of us doubting from time to time. And this is the nature, this is the old man, this is the adversarial thinking that crosses all of our paths from time to time, that challenges us and our position. that challenge us as parents, as leaders, as employees, that will challenge all of us at different levels of our lives. How well do you know thyself? Can you deal with the things that you don't like about yourself? And be able to say, hey, I recognize those things. I don't like them, but I'm going to do the work and align myself up with the things that I need in my life. Are we willing to do the work as leaders? Because rest assured, if we're not willing to do the work, we're going to have a mutiny in a sense of our subordinates that we are leading. There will, in fact, be a mutiny, if you will. Just things chaotic, chaos everywhere. Something to think about. How well do we know thyself? Are you as a leader willing to do the work? How much do you know about yourself? How much are you willing to divulge to your own self? And what I mean by that is to earnestly take a look at what you're dealing with. The things that no one else sees, are you willing to take a look at it? Put it on the table. Again, this is in your own personal time. Place it on the table and be willing to look at it and say, hey, this is mine. I'm not sure what it is, or at least if you know what it is, take hold of it, claim it. That's mine. I don't like it, but guess what? You as a leader or anyone else, you have the ability to change it. It first starts with changing your speech. It first starts with your perspective. And when you change your speech about it, when you change what you say about it, you eventually change your perspective about it. And when you change your perspective about it, you can now change your mannerism. You can change your response to whatever you may be dealing with. How well do you know thyself? Something to think about. And before we end our show here, I'm going to offer you a complimentary Skype meeting with me for about 30 minutes. You can contact me at my email address there in the side channel here. I'm actually when this is done here, completed here, I'm not sure if it's going to be there, but my email address is going to be bookme@imcurtisbrooks.com. Again, that's bookme@curtisbrooks.com. And I don't know if I did the proper introduction, and now that I'm thinking about it, before we got started here. Once again, my name is Curtis Brooks, and I have had the pleasure of working with professional men and women for more than 10 years and helping professional men and women create a winning mindset through my transformational speaking, workshops, and coaching. And I can certainly do the same for you. So I want to invite you to check out my website for more information about me as a transformational speaker, motivational speaker, all the same, and see how we can work for your organization, make some changes, change your mindset in regards to your selection or your choice of words, gain a new insight, get a different perspective, and eventually change how you respond. So as we are continuing to talk about know thyself, what is leadership about? And how much do we really know about leadership? That alone, how much do we really know about ourselves? And that is going to really lend itself to how we treat people, how we treat our subordinates. And there are going to be those subordinates who are going to be a challenge to deal with. But in order for us to deal with them, we have to have faced the challenges in our own personal lives. We have to have gone through it. And I think the problem a lot of times that we are dealing with as people as a whole, not only just leaders, but people as a whole, is that we don't want to face the music in a sense of taking responsibility for what has taken place in our own lives, past or present. And it is only when we take responsibility to the things that have happened in our lives, past or present, that we can change them. We can change our future by taking hold of or at least taking responsibility for the things that even in the past. Because in most cases, if we're not, or if we have not taken responsibility for the things that have happened in the past, and those things are just sitting there, left unattended, if you will, but at the same time wreaking havoc in our lives, if we can take responsibility for those things, even though they are in the past, but reach back and say, you know what? I don't like the way that happened. In fact, you may not even be responsible for this situation. You may not be the responsible party, but you are responsible for how it affects you. You are responsible for your response to whatever situation that has happened to you and I in the past. And here's my point. When you can take responsibility for that which has happened to you in the past, though it's already happened, but reach back to say, again, I don't like what's happened. I don't quite understand it. It may not have been your fault, but take responsibility for how you see it. Change your vocabulary, change your verbiage, and you change your perspective. And when you change your perspective, you change your behavior, and your behavior leads into the correct response. And this is for your future. This is for now. Though the past, you may not think it affects you. Anything that's left unattended, it plays a role in our current disposition, if you will, because those things will have a tendency to rise up and affect our decision making. And again, if we can take back, or at least take responsibility for that, even which is not our fault, taking responsibility for how we respond and how we've allowed such things to affect us. If we can take responsibility for those things, we can change our future response. That's awesome. Think about it. Know thyself. And I'm going to read out of a link here out of Business News Daily that I picked up here. And it talks about leadership. What makes a great leader? And there are 7 professionals, 7 leaders who are giving their take on what they believe what makes a great leader. And I'm going to share just a couple with you. And one person says, leadership requires ambition. Leaders are described with a mouthful of adjectives such as passionate, visionary, charismatic, motivational, and encouraging. However, I propose leadership is something simpler. It's ambition. Ambition creates hard work, determination, and unconditional desire to achieve it. It generates absolutely contagious energy. And this is what I was talking about earlier, that the Maslow's theory. And once you reach that pinnacle of self actualization, again, I invite and encourage you to watch the presentations that I've done thus far on Maslow's theory as it relates to employee engagement and why employee engagement can work for your organization. Again, please take a look at those presentations. You'll get a clear understanding of that once the basic needs of life have been taken care of, and you reach a place of self-actualization, that is where the empowerment comes from. That is where the knowledge, knowing thyself, comes from. We're not trying to escape our trials, and that is the very dilemma that most of us are dealing with. Is because we're trying to escape the trials of life. We're trying to say that I got out of life with no issues. I was unscathed through the challenges. But the reality of it is that I need to see your empathy. I need to see your wounds in life, because out of your situations, you can lead people. It doesn't mean that you're carrying those situations, those negative situations, those challenges in life as a badge of honor. No, you've learned from them and you're inspiring and you're inspired by them, and you can empower others through your challenges. And again, that is my proposal there, is that most of us are, to include leaders, people in general, we're trying to get out of this life without the challenges, at least to show that I had no challenges and this is how I did it. And the truth of the matter is that you're not going to do it without challenges. You're not going to succeed without the challenges in life and having learned from them, and to be able to deliver or at least empower someone through your challenges, through your own struggles. No, I don't need to know, or the individual doesn't need to know all of the staking details of what you've gone through, but bring forth a message that empowers others as leaders. Bring forth a message that will encourage others as leaders. And this is how you know thyself. This is how we know and understand thyself, is that we're bringing forth a message out of our own issues. Again, no one needs to know every staking detail. It's impossible to know every detail of life. It's impossible to know that. It's impossible to share those details with everyone, because they wouldn't understand if we shared them with them. But we can bring forth a message that empowers others to be the best, even in the middle of the challenges. Because rest assured, if we survived, they too can survive. Go beyond just survival. They too can reach that pinnacle of self-actualization, that pinnacle of empowerment, that pinnacle of knowing thyself, that pinnacle of intimacy, that pinnacle of having a relationship with thyself. How well do you know thyself? My name is Curtis Brooks. I have been your host, transformational speaker, and your authority and employee engagement. It has been a great pleasure speaking with you on this topic of leadership. Know thyself. What is leadership, and how much do we really know? And I want to just leave this last bit with you, is that when we think about how much we really know about leadership, about thyself, we have to be willing to understand, or at least divulge that information. We have to remember to place that information in front of us. And that will show us how much we really know. When we can keep the challenges in life in front of us, not in a way that we are, again, wearing those challenges or those issues as a badge of honor, but we remember them. We remember the challenges that we've gone through. We don't forget those things. We keep them at the forefront of our mind and be prepared to draw on that information as needed and be prepared to lead others with that information. And that shows how much we really know. How much or how involved are we going to dig into our own experience, or at least wanting to churn it over and over, because the experiences are not just for a single moment. The experience in most cases lasts a lifetime, and they're our experiences. They belong to us, and we get to churn them and look at those experiences from different perspectives and get the most out of them. Again, my name is Curtis Brooks. How much do you really know about knowledge, about knowing thyself, the knowledge of your own experiences? What can you draw from those experiences? Once more, my name is Curtis Brooks, and I will be signing off. I'm your host, transformational speaker, and your authority in employee engagement. You can contact me for more information at my website. It's going to be www.imcurtisbrooks.com. And also send me an email if you'd like to know more about what we do here and how we can help your organization reach its pinnacle of self-actualization and empowerment. So I encourage you to get in contact with me. My email address is going to be bookme@imcurtisbrooks.com. That's BOOKME@imcurtisbrooks.com. Thank you and have a great day.